workers are running around. Who are these students, the great unwashed, they've taken over? We thought that they would take this lying down. We thought young people were apathetic. We thought that they didn't want to engage in politics, and now they're coming to our ruling party's headquarters. You've got to be kidding. They thought, having brought in austerity, that people were going to take it lying down. And when students took Millbank, on the banks of the Thames, workers, trade unionists, welfare claimants, the unemployed saw that there was an alternative, that people were fighting back, that austerity wasn't taken for granted, that there was an alternative. And over the next month and a bit, you have one of the most radical student movements in British history that really shook the state to its foundations. With mass demonstrations, mass walkouts, it's coming together of not only university students but college students as well, working class, diverse. They brought with it their experiences of police violence, brought with their experiences of the degradation of Britain's schools, that challenged the state completely directly and was crushed by a government that claimed to want to be on the side of students' interests, that were reforming the universities, were tripling the tuition fees for your benefit. We're doing this for you to increase your choice, to increase the amount of money that's being put into vanity building projects on your university campuses, etc., etc., done by a political class that all got their education for free. This is the biggest travesty. And who was at the occupations? No leadership of any of the major political parties, but two Labour MPs, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. And to understand why, the most expensive policy in the Labour Party manifesto of 2017, and the most popular, was free education. That policy, through the mass action of students in 2010, that won the argument. Not just we don't want £9,000 per year fees, we don't just want the unlimited students and have our universities degraded by marketisation, but we want free education. We want return of our grants. We want to pay nothing for university. We see university as a right. We see education as a right and not a privilege. And this, I think this is very crucial to understand the present situation in Labour today. Why did the movement fail? There's various reasons. The student union was dominated by people who politically didn't agree with the mass movement, that was crushed by a state who couldn't face young people being active and taking part in making history. And that's what you'll see if you really do challenge the powers that be, is that they will, brick wall will come in front of you. And we have to be prepared for that. Also, we didn't have that much support from lecturers or unions, even though we had amazing moments of solidarity where firemen would bring their braziers to our protests. We had some trade unionists come on our protests. Trade union lawyers would defend student protesters in the courts. But we had no coherent organisation. It was a rebellion without organisation. None of the parties had represented us. Only a handful of MPs supported our struggle. And students were having to do it, young people were having to do it all themselves. But yeah, it popularised the notion of free education. And it had two major effects. First of all, it destroyed the Liberal Democrats. They were wiped out in the next election. They went from probably nearly going to replace Labour as the second party to having a handful of MPs, and the beautiful moment when Nick Clegg, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, loses his seat in Sheffield Hallam is one I will always remember. I think all the students in 2010 will. And two, the assimilation into the Corbyn project of the whole imaginary of free education, of a youth that was brutally crushed, but in their defeat has brought about a huge transformation in British politics, and that's what one has to remember. We've heard William Morris this morning, the role of the left is to make socialists, but he also said that people fight and lose the battle for the things that they fought for come about in spite of their defeat, and when they come, they tend not to be the things that people had fought for, and other people have to come and fight for what they meant. And I think that really gets to the bottom of what happened in 2010. Although you might lose a single battle, doesn't mean you've lost the war. And eventually, the cultural shift that you've made amongst your comrades and the people you fought with in the society as a whole doesn't go away, but will bubble up at a future moment, and that should be a source for hope. And that's our 2010.
Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, 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 Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and talk about the Chilean student movement as well next session.
Totally. So, as you see in Quebec and Great, there's a parallel in how students and labor are responding to the global crisis of capitalism. And I want to talk a little bit about how this manifested in Latin America, particularly the country where I come from, Chile. It's hard to talk about 2013 without first talking about 2006, and it's hard to talk about 2006 without first talking about what happened between 1973 and 1990 when Salvador Allende, the first Marxist president of Latin America, was elected democratically to the presidency of Chile, and then was brutally, savagely overthrown by the powers that be. And what came after that was more than a decade and a half of brutal military dictatorship. Sorry. So, the last day of the military's dictatorship, 1990, when a pact was made to transition to democracy, Pinochet signed into law a variety of laws. Most importantly, the organic law of education, which reduced the the relationship between the government, the federal government, and schools, and instead handed a lot of the administration of these schools to private interests, and whatever public institutions remained were going to be managed by small municipalities. In April of 2006, dissatisfied with the near absolute privatization of public education and the gut-wrenching precarity of schools, and I say gut-wrenching, it is truly like outstanding how miserable these places are. Hundreds of thousands of high school students took to the streets and occupied their schools. At the height of the movement, which started in April, and at its height in May 30th, over 400 high schools and middle schools were occupied. On June 1st, after the movement had seen its greatest strides, President Michel Bachelet, who some consider a socialist, but I'm not going to talk about that, addressed the nation by television to announce that several new measures for education would be implemented, many of them which met the students' demands. Students were demanding that the costs of the standardized test to get into universities was waived. They were demanding increased support for their transportation to school, and they were also demanding that public education, that there be no more profiteering in education. Later, with the support of, I'll take a step back, with the support of the Federation of University Students and the National Teachers Union, a national strike was convoked on May 30th. Nearly 1 million students and workers mobilized that day. That's around 6% of the country's total population. 5 years later, as these high school organizers went on to college, they found themselves reigniting the movement alongside new working class insurgencies and broader anti-neoliberal demands. And I want to stress something here. And we talked a lot about contradiction and hegemony, and I want to tell you guys how that fits into this. So the dictatorship's laws passed in 1990 continue to rule to this day in Chile. You know, these are laws that no one democratically voted for, and we continue to see that Chile is a democracy, but you know, how are we living still under dictatorship laws? You know, these contradictions. My generation was born under those contradictions. We are told that, hey, you're living in a democracy now, you don't know what a dictatorship is like, but like, homie, we're living under dictatorship laws here, you know? So we went on to school being told that this is a democracy, that if you work hard, you can get far in life. You know, if you're poor, it's because you're lazy. You know, it's because you can't pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't know what bootstraps are. But yeah, that is the logic that dominated in Chile. I believe it's one of the most free market societies in the world today. It's more open to markets than the US is, so I want you to imagine that, you know? And what that meant for my generation, being told that you can do anything if you work hard, but then going to school and seeing public schools, I mean, I don't have pictures right now, but if you have time, I want you to like look for pictures of what public schools in Chile look like. Liceos is what they're called, and national institutes is also what they're called. You have maybe 2 or 3 out of the 30 desks with all 4 working chairs. You know, some of them don't even have back support. You have teachers who are beyond stressed, and I got to work for a while in the Ministry of Education in Chile as an intern and observe these classrooms, and the teachers would tell me I am completely disenchanted with the things that I'm teaching. I came into this job loving, for example, chemistry, loving math, loving literature, but they are so drained by the amount of labor that they're put through that this frustration is passed on later on to the students. So yeah, we saw these things, we saw these contradictions, and we said, no, you know, this is not how it should work. This is not really true democracy, and there are things that are incompatible, and clearly education and democracy is not compatible with the private system if this is what it means. So like I said, 5 years later, these high school organizers went on to college, and their demands weren't only, at this time, student demands. They brought together demands from grassroots civil society, demands from the pension movement, demands from the workers' movement, demands from climate change organizers. And what began in 2006 as a student response to the private education model, which was established during Pinochet's fascist military rule, had grown into a broader coalition that every single dictatorship-era policy in its crosshairs. So it wasn't until 2015 that the movement took its greatest stride. Once again, students found themselves outraged at the government's inability to keep its promise of meaningful educational and social reform. This time, however, the students were not only demanding a universal and democratic public education, they were explicitly calling for stronger measures protecting workers' rights and the establishment of clear lines separating private interest from policymaking. In May of 2015, droves of students were joined by teachers, unionists, environmentalists, indigenous Mapuche land resistors, and a variety of grassroots activists. These groups were cohering into a working class pole that had the potential to bury Chile's democratic neoliberal regime, which had lost its hegemonic power, which it enjoyed for almost 2 decades. Effectively, by the time the presidential elections came around in 2016, that's I guess like 3 years ago, mass political dissatisfaction with the established order allowed for the emergence of a broad coalition of left-wing parties, all of which had been active participants in the escalating unrest that began in 2006. This broad front of the Frente Amplio, spearheaded by the leaders of the student movements and their newly consolidated parties, challenged the old political pact in a manner reminiscent of the mass movement that took Salvador Allende to the presidency 4 decades earlier. It's really hard to capture with words what this movement accomplished and how it's developed. You have students in 2006 organizing and seeing these contradictions, living these contradictions, and fighting against them. Then growing up and bringing together more demands, broader demands that affect workers and general society. And then in 2015, them consolidating as parties and challenging the president of Chile, challenging his power. and almost winning. I think what we see in Britain, what we see in Quebec, what we see in Chile, what we see in France also in 2018 is a response, a global response to this crisis of capitalism. And Camille said it very well. These crises give us an opportunity to intervene, to organize, to imbue these spaces with the socialist discourse, to raise a mass consciousness about what is going on. Yes, we're organizing the students, but what is behind these cuts in education? What is behind poor teacher pay? We all know what it is. It's fucking capitalism.
I think I should compound a lot of these questions just because we're running a little short on time. But I think one thing that's so important to take away from this is that, you know, as I mentioned before, we started to see the crumbling of the neoliberal consensus as shown in the outrage in 2010, 2012, and 2013 in the three countries. And I think a lot of us today really going in should, as well as I'd like to hear from the panelists, is like questioning them and say, why can't we have that here? If there's a failure of the capitalist class in some of the most important countries of production, and their hegemonies fail, why don't we take this opportunity to institute a new class hegemony in America as well? And so going off of that, I think it would be great if we touched off on the overview of the scope of crisis in the US, maybe what the socialist alternative looks like, how do we get there, maybe what comes after.
So just before to give a brief recap of what the crisis is today in the United States, we all know that many of the great public universities in this country were once tuition free. I mean, we're in one of them right now.
Yeah.
Although automation, outsourcing, and the mythical skills gap have reduced the avenues to middle class to one, obtaining a post-secondary education. Tuition has doubled every 9 years. In fact, tuition increases by $2,853 per second. I mean, not tuition, sorry, student debt. With that in mind, I want to invite Camille and Matt to discuss what the alternatives are.
Yeah, I don't think the second word. Okay, thank you. I think one of the main things also we have to remind ourselves that you're not just a student that goes to university, you're also a worker, like in most cases you have a part-time job, you're also like a citizen, like you live in a city, and one of the things we need to put forward also is clear propositions that are going to resonate not only with students as people going to university or college, but just with young people in general. And what we did in the past election with Québec Solidaire, and what is, in my opinion, one of the reasons we managed to more than double our membership and have now 10 elected people, is having really clear position in the electoral campaign. And for us, that meant saying that we need to reduce the cost of public transportation by half, and this is one of the issues that is really affecting students and also workers everywhere. Dental health care, $15 minimum wage, free education, and also a Green New Deal. Like the environment was the #1 issue for people during this past election in Quebec. And at some point, Manon Massé, which is the leader of Québec Solidaire, she's an amazing woman, and she, some people did consider that a mistake. I don't think it was. But she said, if fighting for a true environmental policy and fight against climate change is a socialist thing, then I am a socialist and I'm proud to say it. So we need to not shy away also like with these terms and like that kind of vocabulary. I think it's like really important to use this word, and like people are calling Québec Solidaire Marxist and socialist and like all these words. And it's a great thing in my opinion. I mean, people still managed to vote for us even though like they were calling us these names and they were trying to attack us that way, but guess what? We're now the third position in the National Assembly, so something is working.
I'd just like to follow up on Ajmal's point about student as a worker. In the UK, 8 out of 10 students work at least 20 hours a week. I know many of the people here also work part-time jobs. Students are part of the working class. Whether you work in a cafe or work in a summer job, students are part of the working class and we should act like they are. Also, the work that you do at university, whether you go to a lecture or a seminar or where you do your homework, it's labour for the capitalist class. We're working on ourselves to be better people inside of the economy. The capitalists depend on educated labour. And this is why students need to be stopped talking about we need some loans to be reduced. We need to be much more radical. Students are workers and deserve a wage. And we're not going to ask for bursaries or grants.